And in our Spotlight segment, I sat down with Kourtney Turner, who is the wife of Dodgers third baseman Justin Turner. Now, Kourtney started her own podcast called Holding Kourt, and she's become very involved in the Los Angeles community. So here is part one of my interview with Kourtney Turner. Joining me now is Kourtney Turner, who has been a huge success with her podcast, Holding Kourt. Kourtney, you were also just named as one of the ambassadors to the LA Marathon. I'm so excited for you to be with us today. Thanks for jumping on here.
Of course. Thank you. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you again, too. You know, I want to kind of jump into your podcast first because you started this, a few months ago, and I want to know just kind of what your thought process was and how it came to be.
Yeah, so I kind of always had it in the back of my mind that it was something that I wanted to do, but I think if you're in the mindset of, okay, I'll start something when I have the time, you're really never going to get to it. So it was kind of, I guess, a perfect storm. Justin had got me a podcast starter kit for Valentine's Day. Usually you get flowers or chocolates or all that, but I got the podcast kit. And then I think it was the day after they kind of shut everything down with sports and pretty much everything, actually. And I came downstairs in our condo in Arizona, and he had everything set out on the table.
Aww.
And he was like, you want to do this? Let's do this. You know, no time like the present. You know, we suddenly had a whole lot of free time. So we really kind of just hit record on the first one and didn't really have any expectations. I talked a little about the marathon and my experience with that, and, you know, just had a conversation. And it took me a couple weeks to post it, but when I did, I got really good response. And then, you know, through the weeks, I think we've done 14 episodes now. So starting to kind of get the hang of it and have a little better format, and it's going good. I think the thing I do look forward to the most is eventually being able to, you know, sit down with guests. I think that's been kind of the challenge, is almost like saving people that I really want to have those conversations with in person. But so far, so good. And yeah, we're really enjoying it.
All right. For the guests that don't know, watching, your husband is third baseman from the Dodgers, Justin Turner. And I have to say, you know, I've known Justin for a long time. When I met both of you together at one of the charity events, you guys are so much alike in so many ways. You're both friendly, you're warm. And I love the fact that he got you a podcast kit for Valentine's Day, because you have a background in acting, in sports yourself. So he knew what you really wanted.
Yeah, I think it's super thoughtful, and it just speaks to him. You know, I mean, obviously he does the flower thing, and he does that a lot for me, and it's great. But I think he really dug deep, and, you know, maybe knew that I needed that push, because, you know, our lives do get so busy. And like I said, it's, if you want to wait to make time and say, oh, I'll do that, you know, in a year, or maybe I'll do that, I'll get around to it. Like, you're really just putting kind of your dreams on hold. So I think he knew that maybe I needed that push to do something that, you know, I really wanted to do.
And tell us what kind of conversations and what kind of topics you like to talk about on the podcast.
Well, obviously sports. There's a lot of baseball chat, because I obviously have an expert that can sit with me every week and all that. I think really through the quarantine, it became centered a lot around charity and foundation and good things people are doing. I think a lot of people were kind of searching for good news and wanted to hear positive things and good things in the community, because obviously there was just so much negative swirling around. So it kind of, the first couple weeks, I had people on from CHLA and people from the Dream Center and different people to just kind of tell their stories and their involvement. And the feedback on that was really great. You know, you're nervous. You're like, people are going to expect me to have, you know, wives on there and other baseball players on there. And that kind of became the angle. And so far, I really enjoy spreading that good news.
I think good news is so important too, because like you said, you can turn the TV on and you can get bad news pretty much 24/7. And maybe you do have to dig a little bit deeper to find those stories. But I've always felt like everybody has one, you know, everybody has a really good story, and we don't hear enough of them, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I love giving people that chance to tell their stories, and maybe, you know, listeners would find out something about someone that they didn't know, and they can relate, and they can say, oh my gosh, I didn't know, you know, maybe Justin's just like me. And they, you know, they feel a little bit closer to someone that they admire.
You know, talking about charity, you guys have a foundation. I know you've been involved with, even during the pandemic, the food bank. How do you sort of decide where to allocate your time?
Oh, it's all over. We try
Yeah.
to really do as much as we can. And, our foundation, the two main beneficiaries, we work with homeless veterans, and that's mostly done through the Dream Center. We have a men and a women's home there on their campus, a full treatment program that they can go through and, make their way back into civilian life. And we also work a lot with Children's Hospital. So children going through the unthinkable. And I think people ask us all the time how we kind of came into those. And I think, we obviously all know someone in the military. And I think through baseball, Justin was able to meet so many veterans or active military that just made such an impression on him. And, we just feel so grateful being able to do what we're doing because of other people that have made sacrifice. So I think that's kind of how that came to be. And children, you meet so many kids. And there was a little boy, Luke, that Justin met in New York that just had such a lasting impression on him and I, and we've kind of just formed a bond with him. And through that, we realize, the impact just a hospital visit or a toy drive or something can have on a family to really brighten them up. So those kind of become our two. And then through COVID, we saw the need for meals and people that were struggling. And so the Dream Center set up their food drive. And so we went and called different local restaurants and placed orders so we could help the local businesses and also provide meals for people in need. So we obviously have our main causes that we focus on, but we are able to adapt when the need arises.
Interesting. One of the best stories I think I ever did with Justin is at Dodger Stadium in the second inning of games, they have the military person that they honor.
Mm-hmm.
And every single game I was noticing that I watched him walk over and hand them a baseball. And so I had asked John Suhu, who was the team photographer, I said, does he do that every single game? Because I'm noticing it. And John says, yeah, I have pictures from like every day. Yeah. So, I went to Justin and I said, I want to do a story about this because it's so heartwarming. And just, I'm sure you've seen this a million times, but just the reaction, I don't care if it's a child or an adult, when a player hands them a baseball and then on top of it, it's signed, mm-hmm. that there's just that, I don't know, there's that feeling of, wow, it's such a neat feeling. And I love the fact that he does it every single game.
Yeah, it's such a small gesture. And I think that's what he's realized through his years of playing is what a small thing, people carry with them forever. I'll have people come up to me, oh, your husband gave my son a ball 5 years ago. And
yeah,
people carry that with them. And so to Justin, it's, it seems simple, baseball and you just take a pen and sign it, but it's that memory in that moment that can really make an impact on someone's life and, their day and everything overall. So I always look for it too. When I'm at the game, I always, right when they announce them, I peep down and see the handshake and the ball and then them go up to their seats. So that's definitely something we'll miss this year without people at the games. But yeah, it's something really special that I look forward to.
Me as well. And I want to talk a little bit about baseball later, but first of all, I want to kind of go back because you did something that I think is completely fascinating. I have lived here my whole life in California, but you got in your car and you drove out from Indiana, is that right?
Yeah.
To go to UCLA and you drove across the country. What was that experience like?
Oh man, I really didn't know what I was doing. And I think I look back and I'm like, I was brave. Like, I'm not that brave anymore. And it was a bold move. I didn't really know anyone out here at all. And so, it was just such a big culture shock coming from Indiana where you're kind of, everyone and everyone since kindergarten. I think everyone from my high school was pretty much going to IU, Indiana, or Purdue. And so I was like, I really got to kind of break out of that, obviously like love my friends and all that, but I really needed a change. And so, yeah, it was a lot, there was a lot of eating SpaghettiOs and $5 footlongs and all that to get by, but made it through and graduated. And I love it out here. I love going back home, but yeah, LA's been great.
So had you ever been here before? What was sort of the draw for you?
Yeah, I visited, I want to say once or twice. I think, I don't know. There was just something about it. I've always, I grew up near Lake Michigan. I was always a beach girl. So I think, you just think West Coast. There's just something about California, especially in Indiana, in TV and movies. And I don't know, it just seems like the place you want to be. So it was far away from home. And yeah, it just seemed like a lot of opportunity and worked out, I guess.
It sure did. That's for sure. Now, did you grow up, I have to ask you, did you grow up a Bears fan?
Bears fan, yes.
Cubs?
White Sox.
White Sox. Okay. And then a Bulls or?
Yeah, Bulls fan. White Sox, yeah. My dad worked in the steel mills, and so their family days were always at the White Sox games. So I just grew up loving the White Sox, Frank Thomas, and all of that. So yeah, it's fun to be at the playoff games against the Cubs are obviously very intense, but
yes, they are.
It means a little more when they can handle the Cubs to me.
You know, it's very rare that we get to sit down with players' wives, and so fun to talk to somebody like Kourtney, who is bringing so much positivity at a time when we really need it. And you will watch part 2 of my interview with Kourtney on our next show.